Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Good evening, aspirants. Welcome to the Hindu News Analysis discussion brought to you by ForumIAS for the date 15th of June 2023. These are the list of news articles for today's discussion. We will be covering 5 topics, each from governance, polity, economics, and a topic from environment. Alongside this, we will also be covering 2 previous year prelims questions at the end of the discussion. So with this, straight away, let us move to our first article of the day. First topic, TN withdraws general consent granted to CBI. The news is that the state government of Tamil Nadu announced that it has withdrawn the general consent given to Central Bureau of Investigation. This move is made by the state government from its power under the Section 6 of Delhi Special Police Establishment Act. See, as per the Section 6 of this DSPE Act, the CBI needs consent from the respective state governments for conducting investigation in their jurisdiction. Here, a general consent is granted to CBI by the state governments, enabling the central agency to carry out investigations without any hurdles. But now, Tamil Nadu has withdrawn the general consent. So, from now on, the CBI has to seek prior permission from the state government for investigations case-on-case basis. This is not the first time that a state government has taken such a step. Many state governments, including the government of Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Mizoram, Rajasthan, and many more state governments have withdrawn their general consent to CBI. So, from exam point of view, let us know about CBI comprehensively. See, Central Bureau of Investigation functions under the Department of Personnel under Ministry of Personnel, Pension and Public Grievances. It is the premier investigating police agency in India. And know that it is also the nodal police agency in India that coordinates investigations on behalf of Interpol member countries. Then if we take the background, the CBI owes its origin to the special police establishments constituted by the British government in the year 1941. This establishment, that is the special police establishment, was substituted by the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946. Know that the CBI came into existence on 1963 through a Government of India resolution. So here the establishment of the CBI was based on the recommendation of Santanam Committee on Prevention of Corruption. Another important fact is that CBI is not a statutory body. Only its investigative and jurisdiction powers are governed by the Delhi Special Police Establishments Act of 1946. Now, if we take the composition of CBI, the CBI is headed by a director and he or she is assisted by a special director or an additional director. Additionally, it has a number of joint directors, deputy inspector general, superintendents of police, and also other usual ranks of police personnel. Know that in the organizational structure of CBI has following divisions like Anti-Corruption Division, Economic Offences Division, Directorate of Prosecution and all that. Now, if we take the functions of CBI investigates cases of corruption and fraud committed by the public servants of all central government departments, central public sector undertaking and central financial institutions. Secondly, it functions in investigating economic crimes including bank frauds, financial frauds, import, export and foreign exchange violations, etc. Thirdly, it focuses on investigating special crimes such as cases of terrorism, bomb blasts, or kidnapping for ransom and crimes committed by mafia or the underworld and all that. Fourthly, CBI coordinates the activities of the anti-corruption agencies and various state police forces. Then it also takes up any case of public importance for investigation based on the request of state governments. Know that it also maintains crime statistics and disseminates criminal information. Now, coming to the power and jurisdiction of CBI, under the Section 3 of Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, it confers upon the CBI concurrent and coextensive powers to carry out investigations of offences that are mentioned under the same section. And know that according to the section 6 of the DSPE Act, central government has the power to extend the jurisdiction of CBI to any area. But the thing is, it must fall within the geographical boundaries of India. And know that such extension of jurisdiction is subjected to the consent of the state concerned. Only after getting the consent of the state government, the extension of jurisdiction will be valid. Then an additional power conferred in the CBI constitution is that CBI can correspond with and demand information from any ministry or departments of the central or state governments. Know that the officers of the CBI also have been added power by being exempted from the provisions of Right to Information Act of 2005. Then coming to the issues with CBI, first issue is with respect to the vulnerability to political pressure. The CBI has often been criticized for its alleged failure to function impartially and objectively as an agency of law. However, simultaneously, there has also been an ever-increasing demand for investigation of complicated cases involving influential persons to be handed over to CBI. In 2013, the Supreme Court also called CBI as caged parrot. Then second issue is regarding the legislation. See, the Charter of Duties of CBI is not protected by legislation. Instead, its functions are based merely on the government resolution that draws its power from the DSPE Act of 1946. Then critics are of the opinion that this makes CBI merely the premier investigative arm of the union government. Then another thing is that they do not have own cadre. The CBI is run by officers on deputation who are vulnerable to the government's ability to manipulate. This is because the senior officers themselves are dependent on the central government for future postings. Then the fourth issue is the internal conflicts. Internal conflicts in CBI is a major challenge to the functioning of organization. Remember, there was a conflict between director and special director once, and their public allegations against each other raised serious questions about the integrity and image of agency. Then finally, delays in concluding investigation is one of the issue there. Enormous delays in concluding investigation is a major criticism of CBI. Supreme Courts and High Courts hand over a large number of sensitive cases to the CBI for investigation without additional manpower. As a way forward, we can say a comprehensive new central law should be formulated for the governance of CBI, and only then the autonomy of the agency could be ensured. Further, the Charter of Duties should be clearly defined and stated. And secondly, measures should be taken to restore the institutional integrity of the CBI so that it could boost the public confidence on the institution. Finally, measures should be taken to ensure transparency in the process of investigations by CBI. In addition to that, there should be a public discourse on whether CBI should be brought under RTI Act or not. So these are the points which could be added as a way forward. So from this discussion, we saw about CBI in a comprehensive manner and also regarding the issues surrounding CBI. So with this, let us close this news article here. Second topic, the next Finance Commission will have a tough task. This news article is regarding Finance Commission. So firstly, let us know about Finance Commission. Then let us know what is the author trying to say. Finance Commission. Finance Commission is a constitutional body established under the Article 280 of Indian Constitution. Know that it is a non-permanent body and it is constituted by the President for a term of 5 years or earlier. Now, if we take the composition of Finance Commission, know that it constitutes one chairperson and 4 members. The qualification of the members of commission is decided by the Parliament. Accordingly, chairperson should have expertise in public affairs. Whereas if you take the qualifications for other 4 members, 1 member should be qualified to be a judge of High Court, 1 member should be a person with special knowledge in finance, another person with experience in financial matters, then a person with special knowledge in economics is also eligible to become a member of Finance Commission. Now coming to the role played by the Finance Commission, see, Finance Commission decides on net distribution of taxes between center and states and also the amount that should be shared among the states. Secondly, it demarcates principles for grant and aids to states. Thirdly, measures to augment consolidated fund of states are also provided by the Finance Commission. Then they also take steps to supplement resources to local bodies in order to make local bodies function autonomously. Now, coming back to the article begins by mentioning that the government will appoint Finance Commission in the next few months. This Finance Commission will be appointed to determine how much of the centre's tax revenue should be given away to states. That is, they are talking about the vertical share. And similarly, the Finance Commission will also be given the task to decide how much should be distributed among the states as well. So, how much net proceeds must be distributed among the states, which is the horizontal sharing formula. See, when Planning Commission was there, the principles or the allocations recommended by the Finance Commission were not much criticized, because even if the Finance Commission recommends to allot lesser share of taxes to certain states, their Planning Commission will somehow compensate funds through discretionary grants to states that received low tax amount because of Finance Commission recommendations. But post the reforms, that is after abolishing Planning Commission, Finance Commission remains virtually the sole architect of India's fiscal federalism. That is, the fiscal federalism here means the sharing of revenue between the states and center, and as well as among the states are mainly determined by the Finance Commission's recommendation. So, the responsibility and influence of Finance Commission became much larger now. After saying this, the author predicts that issue for Finance Commission will be about horizontal distribution. That is, how much of net tax proceeds has to be distributed among the states will be one of the major issue. Currently, the center gives away 41% of its tax pool to the states. The author here says that states will demand that this proportion be raised in upcoming Finance Commission, but he says there is less possibility to increase their share due to rise of center's expenditure and constraints on its borrowing limit. We already know, right, after the COVID-19 pandemic, the central government is taking enormous steps to reduce the fiscal deficit. So, if it shares more part of its revenue with states, fiscal deficit could widen, which the central government would not like. Therefore, much of the debate will center on the horizontal distribution formula, that is, which state will get how much from the tax proceeds. When the previous Finance Commission was appointed in 2017, its terms of reference were criticized by few because it considered the 2011 population census. This 2011 population figures were used in determining the expenditure needs of a state, because until then, Finance Commissions used the 1971 population numbers so that states that are performing well in population stabilization and control doesn't get affected by low share of devolution. Here, after the change of base year to 2011, states which has done well in stabilizing population growth rates, especially the southern states, protested and called this move as a penalty for good performance. Secondly, a similar conflict arises with regard to revenue deficit grants. The revenue deficit grant is the grant that the Finance Commission awards to states which remain in deficit on current account even after tax devolution. Here the author says this type of grant will only make the state government lethargic in handling the finance, because the state government will not worry about the rising revenue deficit when Finance Commission will come to its aid. Then the Finance Commission finds difficulty in determining how much state's deficit is caused because of its fiscal incapacity and how much deficit is caused due to fiscal irresponsibility. Because if Finance Commission will provide grants to states which has deficit because of its irresponsible fiscal policies, then it will not be fair, right? This will only disincentivize the fiscally responsible states. Considering all these negatives, the author says that the net result is that every horizontal distribution formula has been criticized as being inefficient or unfair. Here he says in the very nature of horizontal distribution, richer states compensate poor states. But the richer states should not feel that they are sidelined or exploited. This is the main thing. So for that to happen, the central government should properly define the terms of reference for the Finance Commission. Then in the second subtopic, the author talks about cess and surcharge. Firstly, the author criticized the central government for the levy of cess and surcharges rather than focusing on raising taxes. See, cesses and surcharge are nothing but tax on tax measure. They are tax rates that are charged on taxable amount and not on any product or service value. And know that in case of both cess and surcharge, the taxed amount will entirely be with the center and they are not mandated to be shared with the state governments. So if there is any cess or surcharge on any product or service, then the taxed amount will go to center completely. The only difference between cess and surcharge is that cess is applied for a particular purpose. That is, the fund raised through cess can be utilized only for that particular purpose. For example, if there is education cess, it means the fund that is raised should be used only for the purpose of education. This is not the case for surcharge. They are more generalized fund. So since this type of tax is not shared with states, they are most often criticized by the proponents of federalism. To substantiate his views, the author highlights the white paper released by the Tamil Nadu government a couple of years ago. In that, it says the proportion of cesses and surcharge in the center's total tax revenue had nearly doubled from approximately 10% in 2011 to 20% in 2020. Which means if 100 rupees is the revenue of central government, then approximately 80 rupees is only shareable with states. So the author says the straightforward option for raising revenue is to raise taxes and not to impose cess and surcharge. In addition to this, he suggests next Finance Commission to lay down guidelines regarding when the cess and surcharge might be levied, and also suggests a formula to cap the amount that can be raised. Finally, the author talks about freebies. He tells that there has to be a safety net for the poor, but that has to be clearly analyzed before serving the people. And moreover, one cannot ask the government to stop providing services that are free of cost, because it will be like questioning the sovereignty of the government. So for that, he says the Finance Commission, which will be appointed in the future, should lay down guidelines on the spending of freebies in the interest of long-term fiscal sustainability. So this can balance the welfare motive as well as the fiscal responsibility of the government. So these are the points which are listed in the opinion section. So from this article, we saw about Finance Commission and the concerns that are put forward to the Finance Commission, which will be appointed in the later days. So with this, let us close this topic here. Third topic, strengthening the ICDS scheme. This topic is related to ICDS scheme. So firstly, let us know about ICDS. See, Integrated Child Development Scheme was launched on the year 1975. The ICDS scheme is one of the flagship programs of Government of India, and it represents one of the world's largest and unique programs for early childhood care and development. See, it is the foremost symbol of country's commitment to its children and nursing mothers, because it is seen as a response to the challenge of providing preschool non-formal education on one hand and breaking the vicious cycle of malnutrition, morbidity, reduced learning capacity and mortality on the other. Also, the beneficiaries under the schemes are children in the age group of 0 to 6 years, pregnant women and lactating mothers. If we take the objectives of the scheme, the main objective is to improve the nutritional and health status of children in the age group of 0 to 6 years. Then to lay the foundations for proper psychological, physical and social development of the children. Thirdly, the aim is to reduce the incidence of mortality, malnutrition and school dropouts. Then fourthly, it strives to achieve effective coordination of policy and implementation among various departments to promote child development. Finally, the scheme enhances the capacity of the mother to look after the normal health and nutritional needs of the children through proper nutrition and health education. Now, coming back to the article acknowledges India's high prevalence of stunting, wasting and anemia that causes public health risks for children and women. Here, the authors do not give high weightage to the claims that data and assessment reports are inconsistent and wrong and all. Rather, they accept the reality that India has high prevalence of malnutrition. Now, let us see the studies that are highlighted here. In the first study, It highlights the correlation between early life poverty, malnutrition, and inadequate stimulation and the later cognitive and economic challenges. See, these studies provide an insight regarding the prevalence of poverty and associated malnutrition. Also, they conclude that if we focus on nutrition, education, and health during the early childhood itself, then such interventions can significantly improve the human capital of the country. And this is especially true in case of developing countries. For instance, the peer-reviewed study in the University of Chicago Press Journals found that children who were exposed to ICDS during the first 3 years of life completed zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.3 more grades of schooling than those who did not get exposed to ICDS. Similarly, in the Natural Library of Medicine study, it was found that the adolescents aged 13 to 18 showed 7.8% increased likelihood of school enrollment as they were born in the villages that had proper ICDS implementation. So from these data, we can see how ICDS benefits children. But here know that ICDS still faces Herculean task of improving the nutritional and health outcomes of children aged 0 to 6 years. To make the working of ICDS efficient, the author proposes empowering Anganwadi workers. Because in the Poshan 2.0 initiative also, these Anganwadi workers are responsible for advancing child nutrition, health and education in their community. So, strengthening the Anganwadi workers' skills, knowledge will help them employ modern technology. Secondly, the opinion suggests to add more Anganwadi workers to each of India's approximately 14 lakh Anganwadi centers. This is expected to lessen the load of these workers, and such a move is expected to lead better health and educational outcomes. For instance, randomized control trial in Tamil Nadu concludes improvement in math and language test scores for children who are enrolled in the program due to increase in staff levels. In addition to it, the new Anganwadi workers, if deployed, can be given the responsibility of concentrating only on preschool and early childhood education. So this would allow existing workers to dedicate more time to child health and nutrition. It would also enable the Anganwadi workers to expand their outreach and serve a larger number of families. So additional workers and workforce with division of labor is expected to increase specialization and other outcomes. Then apart from the points we discussed, additional workforce as Anganwadi workers would create job opportunities for local residents, particularly women. It would lead to a creation of approximately 1.3 million new jobs for women across India. Then finally, the author suggests for improving the skill set of Anganwadi workers. For that, the article proposes for further investments in the training program. And finally, to unlock the ICDS full potential and to address persistent issues, the author says it is essential to revisit and re-evaluate the strategies and implementation. So that is what the opinion section has all about, to say recommendations and suggestions in order to improve the performance of ICDS. So from this article, we saw what is ICDS, the objectives behind Integrated Child Development Scheme, and also the opinion provided by the authors. So with this, let us close this article here. Fourth topic, the status of transgenic crops in India. The news is that Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee proposed testing a new kind of transgenic cottonseed that contains a gene Cry2AI. This Cry2AI seeds makes cotton resistant to pink bollworm, which is a major pest. But this proposal from Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee got rejected by 3 states, namely Gujarat, Maharashtra and Telangana. So from this topic, let us know about transgenic crop. See, as per the World Health Organization, genetically modified organisms are organisms in which the genetic materials have been altered in a way that does not occur naturally by mating or natural recombination. The technology is often called modern biotechnology or gene technology. It is sometimes referred to as recombinant DNA technology or genetic engineering. Know that it allows selected individual genes to be transferred from one organism into another. Also between non-related species. See, foods, crops produced from or using GM organisms are often referred to as GM foods or crops. Unlike what plant breeders did traditionally in crossbreeding by combining genes from same or closely related plant species, GM technology does not restrict the trait selection. Here, genes from any living organisms, be it plants or animals, is used to arrive at the desired traits. Now, coming to the benefits or advantages of GM crops can save farmers' income by reducing pesticide load on the environment and provide pesticide or insecticide free crops to consumers while also boosting the soil conservation efforts. For instance, in the case of cotton, farmers cite high cost of weeding, which goes down considerably if they grow BT cotton and use glyphosate against weeds. Also, brinjal growers in Haryana have rooted for BT brinjal as it reduces the cost of production by cutting down on the use of pesticides. The GM technology is also being used to develop drought tolerant and nutrient efficient varieties. Moreover, it can help produce foods with better shelf life, taste, and texture. In addition to it, crops can even be engineered to be more nutritious, providing critical vitamins to population that struggle to get nutrients needed for healthy living. This is all about the benefits of GM crops. See, in case of India, know that cotton remains the only transgenic crop that is being cultivated commercially. However, the GEAC approved the environmental release of mustard DMH11 and its parental lines in 2022 for seed production and testing. But this is one step away from full commercial cultivation. So as of now, only BT cotton is eligible for commercial cultivation in India. Know that alone. But why there is lack of acceptance with regard to transgenic crop? Let us see the reasons. First is the environmental concerns. Since genetically modified organism is artificially created, its breeding with other crops in the natural ecosystem can result in genetic contamination. Another argument from ecologists is that the BT crops can harm non-target insects, thereby affecting the species diversity. In case of BT corn, monarch butterflies feeding on wild milkweed that grows near cornfields may be harmed. Then the second point is the economic concerns. Various claims around stress tolerance, nutrition, and yields have turned out to be false, including in India with its BT cotton experience. Cotton yield has stagnated around 460 kgs per hectare in the recent past despite most cotton being GM. Then there is increased use of chemicals, which is one of the concerns. On the other hand, increased illegal use of glyphosate is bringing its own problems. Though GM cotton was supposed to be most or more resistant to pests, chemical usage in India's cotton cultivation has actually increased. It is noteworthy that 24 countries that are ahead of India in terms of cotton yields do not grow GM cotton. Then the other factor is the corporate control over farming. See, it is facilitated by GM technology because corporates will be accompanied with intellectual property rights. No, this gives them control over the food supply as well. From an economic standpoint, this poses a significant risk to the long-term food security by creating dependence on single or limited numbers of suppliers. If the supplier company fails, then the crop it provides would not be available to people who are dependent on that crop. Then know that GM crops are modified to include antibiotics to kill germs and pests. And when they are consumed, these antibiotic markers will persist in the body, rendering the actual antibiotic medications less effective over a period of time. This leads to superbug threats. This means it will allow illness to become more difficult to cure. Then the final concern is regarding the ethical aspects. 5 sets of ethical concerns have been raised. Firstly, potential harm to human health, then potential damage to environment, negative impact on traditional farming practice, excessive corporate dominance, unnaturalness of the technology, or some of the ethical concerns. They know that people in general are wary of GM crops as they are engineered in a lab and do not occur in nature. So these are the concerns that are with respect to GM crops. So from this article, we saw about the recent news and what is transgenic crop and the concerns and advantages related to it. So with this, let us close this news article here. Fifth topic, base boost. The news is that retail inflation slowed to a 25-month low of 4.25% in the month of May, and headline inflation decelerated for 4 months continuously. But the experts say that 4.25% of CPI for the month of May is largely due to base effect, because last year, that is in the year 2022, inflation for the month of May was 7%. Inflation is calculated year on year, no? So if the inflation is very high last year, then the inflation though might be high in the corresponding month of this year, it will be shown as moderate because of the base effect. Similarly, in another news article, we got a data that WPI remains in deflationary zone for second month in a row, and WPI drops to 3.48%. So from this article, let us know about the difference between CPI and WPI from prelims angle. WPI is based on the price prevailing in the wholesale market or the price at which bulk transactions are made, whereas CPI is based on the final prices of goods at the retail level. Know that both these indices are the weighted average of prices of specified set of goods and services. See, data on WPI is available every week, while data on CPI is only available every month. So there is a time lag in CPI data availability compared to WPI data availability. So this can impact decision making process of both RBI and the government of India. Then secondly, in India, we do not have one CPI calculated. Earlier, there were 4 CPIs calculated for 4 different set of workers, and now we have 3 such CPIs, out of which the most famous is the CPI for industrial workers. The other CPIs which are used currently are CPI for agricultural laborers and CPI for rural laborers. The argument used therefore is that there is no one CPI value which can be used for decision making either by RBI or Government of India. Accordingly, to our policy makers or decision makers at RBI, WPI has a broader coverage compared to all the CPIs in terms of commodities covered or quotations or large number of non-agricultural products, because large number of non-agricultural products and tradable items are found missing in CPIs. And know that interest rates which the RBI control may not have much of a correlation with high food prices. Therefore, decision makers may feel that since they can't target inflation across major sections constituting the CPI, they would rather focus on WPI, which constitutes goods on whose demand interest rates may have a more significant impact. Then WPI is calculated on all India basis, while CPI is calculated for specific centers in India, and then this is aggregated to an all India index. Know that CPI data is released monthly by Central Statistical Office, which functions under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Also, RBI has adopted CPI as the key measure for determining the inflation situation of Indian economy based on the recommendations of Urjit Patel Committee. Whereas the WPI is computed by Office of Economic Advisor, which comes under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So that is all about the facts relating to Consumer Price Index and Wholesale Price Index. So with this, let us close this news article here and move to the previous year prelims question discussion. Coming to the previous year prelims question, let us consider this first question. Which one of the following is likely to be the most inflationary in its effects? Options given are option A, repayment of public debt, option B, borrowing from the public to finance a budget deficit, option C, borrowing from the bank to finance a budget deficit, option D, creating a new money to finance a budget deficit. See, borrowing from public and banks will lead to decrease in the money supply in the market. So, in both the options, money in hand is reduced for the public and even the banks will have lesser money to lend. So, these two options will not lead to inflation. Considering these two options, creation of new money to finance a budget deficit will have more inflationary effect than repayment of debt. So the correct answer for this question is option D, creation of new money to finance a budget deficit. Coming to the second question, R2 Code of Practices constitutes a tool available for promoting the adoption of option A, environmentally sustainable practices in electronics recycling industry, option B, ecological management of wetlands of international importance under the Ramsar Convention, option C, sustainable practices in the cultivation of agricultural crops in degraded lands, option D, environmental impact assessment in the exploitation of natural resources. See, R2 stands for responsible recycling, and it is a standard specifically created for electronics recycling by the SERI, which is called as Sustainable Electronics Recycling Initiative. So the correct answer for this question is option A, environmentally responsible practices in electronics recycling industry. So with this, we have come to the end of the news articles and question discussion. Let us wind up this session. If you can understand the concepts well, and if you like the method of teaching, please like, share, comment and subscribe to ForumIAS in various social media platforms. Thank you.